You can hear it in every showroom and on every street. The clothes feel the same, the price tags climb, and the difference between a designer label and a high street badge gets thinner every season. What we used to call luxury, the hand, the time, the rare fabric, and the ritual, now feels alarmingly like fast fashion wearing a logo. Today, I want to ask a simple, brutal question. Why is everything fast fashion now? And what does that mean for the idea of luxury itself? The story starts with a promise. For a century, luxury sold more than objects. It sold meaning. A carefully made coat promised craft, provenance, rarity, and a quiet ownership that separated the buyer from mere trend following. Luxury was slow by design. Workshops, artisans perfected patterns and silences that took months, sometimes years, to achieve. That slowness became the value proposition. But value is not fixed. The last 10 years rewired how we buy, how brands behave, and crucially, how we define worth. Let's break down the forces that dissolve the margins between couture and the corner store, and let's be honest about the winners and the casualties. First, scale and expectation. Luxury houses are now global conglomerates whose stock prices, quarterly results, and investor narratives matter. Shareholders want growth. Growth demands new customers, new categories, new SKUs, and faster turnarounds. The result is product inflation. More items with shorter development cycles. When the production timeline is compressed, quality slips, not always in dramatic ways, but in accumulative losses. Linings that fray sooner, finishes that dull faster, leather without the same hand. For customers who buy with deep emotional logic, this erosion feels like betrayal. Second, supply chain pressures. The pandemic taught brands they could survive digital first, but surviving turned into scaling. And scaling often meant outsourcing, moving production, chasing cost efficiencies. Historic ateliers and specialized tanners are expensive and slow. When production is dispersed to cheaper factories to meet volume, oversight becomes a nightmare. Quality control is no longer the natural byproduct of a single workshop's standards. It becomes a monitored checklist, easier to gamify than to sustain. Third, the acceleration of trends. Social media cycles make everything disposable. What was once a seasonal silhouette is now a microtrend that arrives, peaks, and collapses in a matter of weeks. The consequence? Brands flood the market with looks. Speed equals relevance, and relevance equals exposure. But relevance bought at speed often sacrifices the craft that made luxury meaningful in the first place. Fourth, democratization and desire. Luxury sought to be less rare because rarity excludes millions of potential customers. Brands expanded price tiers, created entry-level pieces, and licensed products. The democratization of desire is not bad. It made beautiful things accessible, but it blurred the lines that used to tell you, without words, why something was special. When a $3,000 bag is followed by 30 similar-looking items at $300 and $30, the signifier of luxury becomes the sign itself, the logo, and not the making. Fifth, marketing alchemy. Modern brands deploy emotional storytelling, influencer validation, and scarcity tactics more deliberately than ever. When marketing becomes the primary engine, product sometimes becomes secondary. You can create lust without creating durability. That's a sustainable model for a while, but only if consumers keep buying on desire alone. Increasingly, they don't. Now, let's talk about the consumer mind. Why are people reacting? There are two overlapping currents. One is economic. People feel the pinch of price rises and stagnating wages. Paying more for less is an immediately felt injustice. The second is psychological. Consumers today want meaning alongside ownership. They want to feel responsible about what they buy. If a bag costs the same but lacks the craft and the ethical clarity, but that premium starts to feel like a tax on aesthetics rather than a celebration of skill. Add to that the culture of visibility. When every purchase can be posted, inspected, resold, and scrutinized, the emotional payoff of buying luxury changes. The social reward used to be quiet distinction. Now it's a public performance judged by millions. When the performance is hollow, a beautifully shot image but a product that falls apart, the dissonance is sharp. People are less willing to forgive a badge that doesn't deliver. There's a moral dimension as well. Stories of poor working conditions, environmental damage, and opaque supply chains have multiplied. Consumers who once separated ethics from aesthetics increasingly refuse to do so. The luxury conversation now includes provenance and purpose. When brands fail on either front, by cutting corners on production or by outsourcing accountability, trust fractures. And trust, in a sector that traded on reputation, is everything. So what about the brands themselves? Some will call this disruption an existential threat. Others will call it a market correction, a rebalancing where the houses that invested in craft, traceability and timelessness will survive and even thrive. Here's the reality. There are three plausible brand responses. The first, hyperscale and brand as platform. These players lean into lifestyle expansion, collaborations, beauty, home and licensing. They accept a dilution of exclusivity in exchange for cultural ubiquity and revenue. Their gamble, the brand's image is the product. For a while it can work until the consumer questions whether the image has substance. The second, recommit to craft. A smaller set of maisons will double down on workshops, traceable materials and slower production. They will make fewer pieces, charge properly for the labor and invite customers into a narrative of preservation and skill. This path aligns with the values a certain audience wants and can withstand price resistance because it offers demonstrable difference. The third, hybrid survival strategies. Most brands will try to straddle both worlds. High-level storytelling for prestige products while running a high-volume machine for mass categories. That's the trickiest path because it requires surgical governance, different supply chains, rigorous quality control in the high tier, clear separation between heritage products and filler SKUs. Few organizations are structured well enough to pull it off without contradictions. There is a cultural question here too. Is the end of luxury an apocalypse or an evolution? Luxury is not a fixed object, it's a language we all use to speak about taste, scarcity, and value. It can mutate. If tomorrow a new form of luxury emerges, informed by sustainability, craft, and community, rather than logos and price alone, that would be progress, not collapse. So what can a thoughtful consumer do? Demand transparency. Ask how things are made, where leather is tanned, who stitches a seam. Value durability over novelty. Vote with your wallet for brands that can show the labor behind the product. And remember, prestige is not only a matter of price, it's a matter of respect for the hands that made an object and the time that allowed it to be made well. And what should brands learn? Stop confusing demand with permission to cut corners. Invest in traceability, invest in your ateliers, and tell stories that match the product reality. If you want to sell less for more, make the less worth paying for. If you want to sell more for less, be honest about it, and don't borrow the language of craft to sell a trend-driven product. Finally, there's a hopeful note. Crises in taste always breed creativity. When the market grows tired of image without substance, it opens room for new makers, small ateliers and designers who value making over marketing. The rebirth of slow, local craft may not be as loud on Instagram, but it will be the quiet shift that restores meaning. When you stand in your closet tonight, ask yourself, what do I want from what I wear? Do I want to belong to a story or to buy an image? Both choices are valid. The important thing is to choose with clarity. Because the future of fashion depends less on the logos and more on whether we, collectively, demand better from the brands, from the supply chains, and yes, from ourselves. This is not the end of luxury. It's an invitation to redefine it. If luxury becomes the practice of honoring materials, people, and time, then perhaps we will have something rarer than a logo, a thing worth keeping. Thank you for listening. If this resonated, tell me what you're seeing where you shop. Which brands still feel like the real thing? Which ones have lost you? Let's talk. Honestly, sharply, and always with curiosity. Because at the end of the day, fashion is a mirror. It reflects who we are, what we value, and what we're willing to tolerate. Maybe the truth is that people aren't walking away from luxury itself, but from what luxury has become. The soul of fashion has always been about beauty, meaning, and identity, not mass production disguised as exclusivity. And right now, people are craving something real again. They want to feel the heartbeat of creation, not algorithms, not trend cycles, but authenticity. The kind of beauty that doesn't scream but whispers, the kind that doesn't chase relevance but earns timelessness, the kind that feels human. And maybe this shift we're seeing, this quiet rejection, is the most powerful act of rebellion consumers have ever made. Choosing less, choosing better, choosing meaning over hype. The brands that understand this are the ones that will last. Because when everything starts to feel fast, disposable, and soulless, real luxury becomes the art of slowing down. So as the world questions what luxury even means anymore, maybe the answer isn't found in price tags or brand names, but in integrity, in how something's made, how it feels, how it lasts, and how honestly it tells its story. That's where the future of fashion is heading. Not louder, but truer. And maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of fashion finding its soul again.